so many of us, when we want someone to be our mentor, the first mistake is we ask them to be our mentor.
Don't do that. That also makes me die on the inside. If somebody asks me that, I'm like, that's such a huge responsibility. What if I f you up?
Exactly.
I don't want
or
that.
What if I don't have time? What if I can't respond? Like that's the natural reaction.
Right.
And same with me. I've always had mentors that don't know they're my mentors. It's the only way. But what I love about your advice, which I've never ever heard before, is also how you asked for advice. I think the second mistake, so the first mistake we say is, can you be my mentor?
Yeah.
The second mistake we make is we send our whole life story with one like really big, profound question. So it's like, I went from this, then I did this, then I dropped out, then I did this, then I did this. How do I discover my purpose? And it's like the person on the other side has no idea how to compute all of that algorithmically and give you a really profound answer back that they genuinely believe will help you, which means they probably won't respond. Or if they do respond, it will be extremely short. And then you'll feel disgruntled and upset that they didn't value your whole life story. And then now you probably lose touch. Whereas your advice was just so perfect, because the idea that you were sending them their own work with a couple of highlights, one sentence question, one piece of insight, and then that person, like you said, becomes invested in your life. That is such great advice, Codie. I really mean that. I've never heard mentorship advice better than that.
Yeah, I think it worked for me. And I also think the other piece of advice that was useful, I never went for like the top dog.
Yeah.
You know, I would never go to the president of Goldman, Lloyd Blankfein, back in the day and be like, Lloyd, the thing is, talk to me. Can I have your email? Of course not. I would go to like 1 or 2 levels past what was comfortable for me, right? So it was like, I could still get to the person.
Yes.
And then you can use it as like a leapfrog. And the last thing I'll say is I totally disagree with the advice today that a lot of like kind of well-known people give, which is, once you outgrow people, leave them behind you, you know? And a lot of people say like, well, they were my mentor, but I've superseded all my mentors.
Oh no. Ooh.
Yeah. And I hear that often from like the business community, you know, it's like, you're the average of the 5 people you surround yourself with. So make sure they're awesome. And it's like, yeah, but also don't forget how you got there, because you never know. Mentorship has like multi-layers to it. You can get mentored from above, but also below. I mean, your team was teaching us beforehand how to not sound like boomers, right? So like, there's that, you know, you can also have somebody that's a hire that, like, for instance, I think a lot about the idea that like, Peter Thiel, whether you like him or not, really rich guy, gives money to Mark Zuckerberg, right? Whether you like him or not, Mark Zuckerberg then goes to become richer than Peter Thiel. Now, is Peter mad because Mark made more money than him? I highly doubt it, because Mark made Peter a ton of money. And at one point, you know, the imbalance was Peter was way up here and Mark was down here. And now it's probably flipped. And how cool is that? That like somebody who used to be sort of below you, you've helped in some way get above you.
Yeah.
And then you get to like value transfer the other way. So I will say, like, maybe if I gave one other piece of advice on mentorship, it would be collect and keep with you the people even after you've superseded them.
That's beautiful
advice,
you know? Yeah.
And try to be their best mentor.
Absolutely.
Like, I mean, mentee. I always try to like have them, I want them to be able to brag about me.
Yeah.
Like, no matter what you teach me, I want to be the best mentee to the point that they're like, hey, look how smart I am because of that.
Yes.
And I want to give them all the credit on it.
Yeah.
And when you do that, then they introduce you to their really successful friends too. So it's a twofer.
Yeah, definitely. And I want to add what you were saying earlier as well, this idea of you have to act on the advice. And I think there's a lot of requesting of advice.
Yeah.
There's a lot of looking for answers. But being a great mentee is taking the advice, putting it into action, and then reporting the result and saying, hey, I took your advice. This is, as you were saying. And I think that's so core to what was different about mentorship, where, like you're saying now in this TikTok, Instagram world, I think there's just so much advice everywhere that we're not really getting the opportunity to digest it, put it into practice, and then report on it as well. And I love your idea of gratitude. I mean, I remember when I joined a company as an intern years ago, and I was only there for like a summer internship, but they put up the pictures of the founders of the company. And then they were like, yeah, but we don't care about them. They're old guys anyway. And I remember I was just like, wow, that's really ungrateful.
Yep.
Because none of us would be here right now if it wasn't for them. And yes, they're not alive anymore. And yes, that was a long time ago. But I fully agree with you that, and also you just don't know when you're on the way up, when you're on the way down. Your mentors generally, if they're older than you in the beginning, even if you become more successful than them materially, I believe they have so much more spiritual wisdom to give you over time. Like, I've got mentors, same way, who helped me out when I was in my late 20s. And today they're so much more helpful when they talk to me about what it feels like being a dad. Like I'm not a dad right now, but he's been a dad and his kids are in their mid-20s and he has a great relationship with them. I'm like, I'm not there at that level. So mentorship also takes across not just financial, but relationships, emotionally, mentally, there's so many other areas.
Oh, yeah.
So leaving someone behind is terrible advice.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
And, it's one thing if somebody's negative or they're unhelpful, which I still believe very much so, like Arthur Brooks, who I just think so highly of. And I remember back before I knew him as a friend and I was just a fan. Last time I was in New York with him, I was having like, when somebody's mean to you online, does that ever happen to you? Probably sometimes.
Yeah, all the time.
Of course. Well, there was one person that was like really mean and I don't know why. It got to me somehow. It bothered me. And this was a while ago, and I remember telling him for some reason. And often it only bothers me if I feel like there's a kernel of truth to it. So if they like really nail my imposter syndrome, or they really nail like, is she as smart as she thinks she is? Like something that I'm like, that I worry about too. If they get that, I'm like, dang it, I'm paying attention now. That's not good. But I remember I said to him like, I'm just bothered and I want to do something about it. And he was like, are you going to listen to me? And I was like, maybe. What are you going to tell me to do? And he's like, I want you to picture this guy having all the success in the world. I want you to wish him so much well, it becomes like a bit bizarre. And I want you to actually feel it. And again, I'm not that touchy-feely. I'm pretty spreadsheety. So when he told me that, I'm like, fine. But like, I don't think there's going to be an outcome here like that. And he's a wonky, very smart guy. So it's not... Anyway, so I did it and I like really thought about it. I was like walking in New York and I was like, you know what? I do wish this guy well because I bet it is sad if you're in a place where all you're doing is hating on somebody online all the time. I bet you are kind of sad. So I started like empathizing with him and thinking about it. Anyway, not 2 weeks later, the guy does a public apology for like, no, and does this long DM to me. My husband has like a long memory. So he's like, no, let's get that guy. But I was like, I just learned such a lesson. And maybe it doesn't always work like that. And maybe they're still mean to you later. But I really think sometimes you learn just as much from your haters as you do from your mentors. And so don't underestimate not only the saying where we kind of get all hot and bothered, like, if you don't got hate, you're not doing anything, maybe, but also, wow, you can learn a lot from the type of feelings you get when people doubt you. And I think that's just as important. And I wouldn't be where I was today if I didn't have some big haters that I felt like I needed to prove wrong.